They just said, no, this isn't slipping away. And we came back, got it into the fifth set. There was some fierce resiliency in this group.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Warrior Weekly with myself, Brady Beedon. And, well, as much fun as it would be to just talk to you guys directly, we're always going to try to have a person in this chair. So especially during the winter season, our good friend Kevin Brechmacher, I know you've heard him, whether it's talking about Wayne State Volleyball, which we have Coach Tim Koth on later on in the show to talk about his incredible season in 2025, or on anywhere on the Warrior Sports Network, sometimes with me on football games, but mainly the voice of men's basketball for now. How many years now? 10 years. You do the women's games on the road as well. Baseball, softball. Basically, if it's not my voice or Sean's voice, it's Kevin's voice. He's one of the three you'll hear. So, again, like I talked about in the first episode, which thank you for everyone that watched. Again, make sure to give us a little follow, give us 5 stars, rate or review, all the stuff you hear on every podcast. I don't really want to repeat, but I will because it's important. We're going to first segment, we're going to recap basically everything that's happened. This is only our second show and our first one in this format. There's a lot more to recap. So basically what we're going to try to do is everything that's happened in the winter so far, mainly basketball. I know swimming and diving has had some events. Fencing has been mostly individual thus far. But that's why we have Kevin on. Let's start with men's basketball because it has been a bit of an up and down start. Last weekend ended on a good note, to win up at Lake State, which I know they haven't been what they have been. But for the men, Kevin, it's been at least feels like one step forward, one step back, one step forward, and at least ended on a good note this past weekend.
Well, basically, they've been alternating wins all season long. Last weekend was a good example of that. They really played well in both games. Should have beat Saginaw, honestly, on Friday if they make a few more free throws. They missed 10 free throws, a lot of those in the second half. Lose by 3, 65-62. But yesterday, I don't know when this is coming out, but I just got back from the Sioux last night. But yesterday I thought was maybe their best all-around effort of the season. Lake State is down a little bit. They lost a ton off their team that made the Elite Eight last year, but they still have the same head coach, Steve Headinga, who does a great job. They still have kids that can shoot the basketball. It's still a tough place to play. You're in a huge gym with not many people, and it's a 5-hour trip up there. But the Warriors really gutted it out in the second half. They fell behind by 5 early in the second half. I was kind of thinking to myself, it might not be our day, but the kids battled back, made a nice little run to take the lead, and just never relinquished that lead after about the 13-minute mark of the second half. Made a lot of free throws down the stretch. They didn't make in the game on Friday, and Jordan Briggs was big. Maybe he was 6-6 from the foul line in the last minute of the game to ice the game.
Well, he's been big all year, but coming into the season, and it's just becoming the new reality of college athletics, especially in basketball, where, hey, you think you got a guy, and you know what? They play well here, and some D1s are going to offer them, and they're going to offer them some a nice little NIL package to come up. And, I'm sure you've talked to the coaching staff, Coach Smothers. I mean, he's been very, supportive of those guys that get those opportunities, and it's just you're going to have to churn the roster over a lot faster than normal. So we didn't really know what this team was going to be this year with all the roster turnover.
A lot of conversations on the record and a lot of conversations off the record. I'll keep the off the record conversations obviously off the record, but let's just say the coaching staff was looking forward to this season kind of being the pinnacle of their tenure here. They were kind of building toward this. They had a bunch of guys who were freshmen, sophomores, and even juniors kind of continue to get better year after year. Last year was their best season record-wise in the Coach Smothers era, and then those guys left. They transferred out, which kind of took the coaching staff a little bit by surprise. But hey, as they say on the record, it doesn't matter who we used to have, it's who we have now, and they're looking for a lot of these transfers they brought in, the Devin Bells, the Jalen Jenkinses, both of them played really well yesterday at Lake State to start producing a little bit more, and if they do, this is a team that can move their way up the standings. If you take a look at the GLIAC standings right now, there's a game tonight, Ferris State takes on Parkside, but almost everybody's played 4 games, and on the men's side, a majority of the teams are 2-2 in conference play, and Wayne State's one of those teams, so every game you win is going to be big, especially on the road. All these road games in January the Warriors had. We'll talk about the women in a minute, but both the men and women play all these games on the road, and it was such a big win for the men yesterday to get that win because this week's going to be tough coming up with Grand Valley, obviously a big rival on Thursday night, who are off to a great start. They just beat Michigan Tech, who was 5th in the country over the weekend up in Houghton. And then Davenport, who traditionally has been kind of down the last few years, but they're having a decent start to their season too. So it doesn't get any easier. There's no easy wins
Right.
On the women's side, there might be.
Well,
But
we'll get to the women's
on the men's
side.
side, there's no easy wins in the league this season.
But, I mean, it affects the whole league. So, like what we talked about with Wayne State, look at Ferris State. Their coach goes to Central Michigan, and he goes, you, and you're coming with me.
And one of our guys, too.
Yeah, well,
we're not going to mention any names, but yeah.
But yes, but that's just what it is. So Ferris had a good program. Coach had been there for a while, and he gets the promotion, and a bunch have come with him. And obviously, there's a couple of bumps in the road between then and now for them. But that makes it hard to reload with what they have.
Absolutely. And Ferris is one of those teams that you kind of look at them on paper. We beat them pretty good here at the field house back in December. You're like, they might be struggling this year, but hey, they're right there, one of those teams right in the middle of the pack in the league as well. So you just never know. But Jalen Jenkins, huge game yesterday. Devin Bell, huge game yesterday. Jordan Briggs, the way he was able to make free throws down the stretch, huge game. And they just found ways to win. And a lot of times, I've witnessed it over 10 years. There's some games you go out there, you think you're going to win, and you're playing well, and then you kind of let it get away at the end. And then there's some games where you're not really playing well, but you kind of make things happen at the end of the game and win. But yesterday, I thought Wayne State played really well from start to finish in that basketball game. Their defense was great all weekend. That's been their one bugaboo all season long. The coaches know it. They've told me this on the record, off the record as well, that, hey, we need to play better team defense. They fixed that this weekend. Can that continue this week coming up? We'll see what happens on the road again as we leave again. I'm here for a couple of days and back on the road for the rest of the weekend. But it'll be interesting to see because I thought defensively they were very good. Lake State, even though they're down a little bit maybe this year, and don't count them out either. I know they're 1-3 in conference play, but Steve Heading is a great coach. Don't count them out. But they still have kids that can score.
Right.
And we held them to 71 points, and we held Saginaw Valley to 65, who've been scoring a lot of points this year, too. So give the defense a lot of credit. Probably should have been 2-0 this weekend. It was 1-1. Anytime you go on the road and play 2 games, you'll take 1 win.
Well, how much of it do you think is not just the coaches, but the players figuring out how all the puzzle pieces come together? Because, okay, for the first 8 years you did this, you go, okay, freshman comes in. If he's really good, he starts. If he's just okay, he might get a few minutes off the bench or he redshirts. And then every year your role gets a little bigger and you start to grow into it, where now it's, all right, all these guys left, you're up. Or, hey, we got this guy out of JUCO, we need you to be the dude right away, and you have to find that chemistry. How much of that do you think falls into this is just, it might take a little longer now than in the past to figure out an identity of a team?
Coaches hate this cliche, but as a broadcaster, I love it, that this is a team, I think, and I still believe this. It'll be much better in February than it would have been in November, December, maybe even in January, just because of, like you said,
right,
all these new pieces. But again, that's a lot of teams. But there's still, hey, I've been doing this long enough to go around the league, know a lot of the coaches and a lot of the players coming back year after year, that there's still some teams out there that have some guys that have been there a while.
Michigan Tech.
Michigan Tech would be one of those. Even Lake State had a couple guys that have been there in the program for quite some time. So I think we're still kind of figuring out the combinations. The coaches are too. But you could tell after the game. I'm not going to speak for Coach Smothers and Coach Vergolo and the rest of the crew, but they were pretty happy they won that game.
Well,
yeah, they were very excited. It was a big win for us.
I feel like in any sport, if you go up to the UP and win, you're always feeling good about it.
We had won 2 games at Lake State in the last 13 that have been played up there. One of those games was during the COVID year, the first game of the season, the year we won the league title back in 21. We beat them. We split. We played teams back-to-back days during that season. We won the first game, lost the second. We won that game. The only other game we had won up there in the Sioux since I have been doing this, and it's been 10 years, was that tournament win in the quarterfinal a couple years ago. And that's been it. We played some good games up there, but we just haven't won. So that's why it was such a big win yesterday.
To add some qualifiers, the first regular season win with fans.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. That's a great way to put it. Yes, the first time I made a joke yesterday on the air. There's this lady who sits on the far side of the bleachers up in the Sioux. About 4 rows up, center court. I've been doing this 10 years. I've been going up there for 10 years. She sits in the exact same spot every year knitting. And she was up there again yesterday knitting. And I was like, you know what? I've been doing this for so long that this lady, I've seen her for 10 straight years in the same spot. And that's the first time that she's seen Wayne State men beat Lake State, because she was not there in 2021 when they did not allow any fans.
There you go. So, all right.
In the regular season.
Yes, the regular season. Let's talk about the Wayne State women, because they are rocking and rolling. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they had a lot of players come back, a lot of familiar faces. I mean, Taylor Thompson, McKenna Ferguson, who's been scoring. And she's the one that, to me, feels like took the big leap. You lose someone like Shea Tripp that it was kind of like, okay, things are bad, get Shea the ball, Shea will handle it. Obviously, Taylor had some big games too, and I feel like she's kept that role. But it feels like McKenna's taken one of the bigger leaps. And then it's kind of a combo of what 2 or 3 girls are going to step up and be the one that is the big factor is what Emily Homan at home a few weeks ago that had it against Findlay, I believe it was. So what do you see with them? Because obviously I get to do their games at home. What did you see with them on the road? Because a dominant win over Saginaw Valley, and they almost let the one get away against Lake State. It got a little closer.
They played 2 bad minutes, or 3, let's say 3. They played 3 bad minutes the entire weekend. So 3 out of 80 isn't bad.
Yeah, it was just a little more closer than I'm sure Coach Lohr would have liked.
Little bit depth.
Yeah.
Depth is the word I want to use for the women's basketball team. And by the way, I know you've checked the standings, but for those of you out there who have not, there are 2 teams left in the conference that haven't lost a game yet. One of them is the defending national champion, Grand Valley, who we play on Thursday, by the way. The other is Wayne State. So we're tied for first with Grand Valley. Everybody else in the league besides us 2 have lost a game. The performance on Friday was dominant. They struggled. Coach, we're taping our locker room report.
Yeah.
Before the game up at Saginaw Friday, and Coach Lohr looks at me before we start taping and goes, "I'm kind of nervous." I said, "Why?" And she goes, "I just don't know if we're going to play very well." And I'm like, "You'll be fine. We tape our interview, whatever." Game starts, rusty. First 5 minutes under 5 media timeouts, 5-4 Saginaw. I'm like,
their first game in 2 weeks.
Okay,
basically.
maybe she was onto something.
Cutscene.
The next 35 minutes was all Wayne State dominating performance. Depth. AJ Rickley got my Blue Cross Blue Shield player of the game on Friday, coming off the bench, career high 13 points. Didn't even play yesterday. That tells you how deep Wayne State is. It just depends. Whoever's playing well is going to play for the Wayne State women's basketball team. And again, they were up 19 early in the second half yesterday, so it was. Jeff Weiss was getting a little worried sitting next to me. I think the coaching staff was maybe getting a little worried. We kind of joked after the game. If the game was 41 minutes long instead of 40, maybe you worry a little bit more. But I was never one time yesterday worried we were going to lose that game. We for 35, 36 minutes, were the much better team. And Lake State's, I use the word plucky. They're plucky. They've got some players.
They're better than they have.
The Bradford girl is a very good player. They had some kids that made some threes in that fourth quarter. Made it closer than probably what it should have been. We didn't make some free throws like the men did later on that day. Turned it over a few times like we shouldn't have. But in the end, hey, you're 4-0, 8-3 overall. I'm saying right now, how are we not getting votes in the national poll? Jeff and I talked about that on the way home last night. It's about time the Wayne State women start getting recognized nationally.
Well, because they played a tough schedule,
We played a tough schedule.
Like, okay,
one loss to Texas Women's, who's third in the country. One loss to Malone, who's lost one game all year. They're in the top 20.
By 10, and they kind of.
Northwood was another loss. You look back at that, maybe should have won that game. They're traditionally very good. They're having a great season. They're an NCAA tournament team possibly as well. So, and you beat Ferris State, who was ranked last week, and with the same overall record. However, is Ferris State ranked over us? So I'm just saying, if you're listening out there, we need to get some votes in the poll.
Not saying they need to be top 10, but
no, but not even top 25 at this point. But just recognize nationally, give some votes. And I mean, we'll talk about it here in a minute, I assume, but a huge game obviously on Thursday.
Yeah, and
measuring stick game.
Yeah, again, the 3 losses, 5 points to Texas women, top 5 team in the country. They were leading against Malone, and then kind of fell down a little bit in that fourth quarter.
There was an iffy call, according to people, some sources who were there at the game, that kind of affected Taylor Thompson fell down on kind of an iffy call. And then the game kind of went haywire after that. But.
And then the Northwood game was the one kind of stud stinker game.
Yeah, you were there for that one.
Yeah, that one was just.
But you're not. I don't care who you are. You're not going to win every game. You play 28, 29 games a year. You're going to have a stinker every now and then.
And then since then, their only loss was a game that didn't count for them against Toledo.
And they played Toledo basically pretty well for almost the entire game. And Toledo maybe down a little bit this year, but as I mentioned on the broadcast that night, Toledo is one of the best programs, not just in the MAC for women basketball, but in the entire country during the last 30, 40 years. So that was a good performance as well. But no, depth. They showed a lot of depth this weekend. Gabby Luchka, it was so funny. Gabby Luchka only scored 2 points yesterday. She doesn't even score the first 3 quarters on Friday because she's in foul trouble. Comes out in the fourth quarter and scores 13 points in the fourth quarter. And yet Wayne State blows out Saginaw Valley without one of their, I call it the big 3 for Wayne State, talking about Ferguson, Thompson, and Luchka. One of your big 3 doesn't even play pretty much the first 3 quarters, and you're up by 30 going into the fourth quarter at Saginaw Valley. And yesterday she has 2 points, and obviously you hold on at the end to win, but it's still a pretty dominating performance and you win. So that tells you how much depth this Wayne State women's basketball team has. And I asked Coach Lohr about it during the locker room report yesterday. I said, do you think this team this year has more depth than last year's team that made it to the second round of the tournament? Maybe you have a better player up top with Shea Tripp like we talked about, but do you have more depth? And she said, I kind of agree, yeah, and it's showing through. And I'm not predicting obviously us to go over there and beat Grand Valley. I don't know if anybody in the country is going to beat Grand Valley this year, but I think it's a good measuring stick game and to see how you can compete with the best team in the country. If you go over there and you compete. And I'm not saying even if we don't, we're not going to have a good year, but that gives you a lot of confidence going forward that, hey, we're a pretty good basketball team. And there's 5 teams right now in the GLIAC that are pretty good. Grand Valley, us, Northern Michigan, Michigan Tech, and Ferris State. There's 5 really good teams. Parkside is off to a rough start. They were supposed to be good. They play Ferris tonight. If they lose their 0-4, you're behind the 8 ball there if you're Parkside. So maybe 5, possibly 6, but after that, unlike the men, it kind of tails off. But Wayne State's right there. And right now, if the season ended today, they would be in the NCAA tournament.
All right. We'll talk about all that later on. We'll have my conversation with volleyball coach Tim Koth next. And we'll talk about all that big matchup out in Allendale. We'll talk about that here on Warrior Weekly with Brady Beedon. All right. Now, time to welcome in our second ever guest. As I mentioned before, we're going to have a lot of backtracking to do starting this show mid-year, and nowhere better to start than with Tim Koth in the Wayne State volleyball program. Coach, first of all, thank you for coming on, and congratulations on a great season. GLIAC champs, both regular season and tournament. Had to feel nice to get those both in one fell swoop.
Yeah, that's a fun feeling. First, thanks for having me. Appreciate the kind words, and we're really happy with what happened. And the holiday break just has been an opportunity to absorb what we really did, and just really enjoy an outstanding performance by our group this year.
So I'll start you off with a pretty simple question. When did you realize you were really good this year, and you had a chance to accomplish all those goals, and you knew anyone on the court with us we can beat?
Probably the first weekend. We had the Warrior Invitational. The Warrior Invitational was challenging. We had some really competitive teams. And over the years when we've had that and we've played 4 matches, when we've had some competitive matches, that 4th match, second of a day, and the 4th match of the tournament in 2 days, can always be really challenging. And we had it set up that we played Winona State, who was a good team from up in the Northern Sun, and they had played really well that weekend, and we looked in trouble. And it's like, I think this one's gonna slip away. And all of a sudden, it was kind of like I just saw in the Kaylas, they just said, no, this isn't slipping away. And we came back, got it into the 5th set. We're down again, and I saw the same kind of thing. So it's like there was some fierce resiliency in this group. It wasn't always pretty. We were a learning process. What a lot of people didn't realize is we started 2 true freshmen for most of the year. So we were young in a lot of spots and growing, but the Kaylas really drove the ship in terms of just like, we're not going to let this not be what we want it to be. And so that first weekend when we came back and we won that match, I'm like, this team could be good. I think the second eye-popping moment was at Grand Valley. We've had some great matches with Grand Valley. I mean, at one point, since I've been at Wayne State, we had won 11 out of 12, and then we went on an 0 for 2 seasons. And then, that first match is kind of like, there was kind of that back and forth. I'm like, okay, this feels like the Wayne State Grand Valley that we've seen for the last 4 or 5 years. And then all of a sudden it kind of kicked in, and we beat them 25-12 to go into the 5th set. And I'm like, we're going to win this match. And we rolled it. And I'm like, yeah, we're a legit team. So I think those were the 2 kind of defining moments for this group this year.
Well, you mentioned the Kaylas, Kayla Dalgar, Kayla Giroux. Two awesome players for you. I mean, Giroux, All-American. Dalgar also raked in a bunch of awards as well. I mean, we'd be here 10 minutes if I was listening to all the posts. Exactly. It felt like Zach had a new post every day for the new award. What did those 2 mean? Because you talked about having true freshmen on the court, but having 2 players like that you can lean on a little bit to help kind of shepherd them forward. What did those 2 mean for your program this year?
Their personalities were unbelievable. Kayla just finished the semester. She was a 4.0. She's a first-team All-American. And, just the respect factor that both of them have, because they weren't in-your-face, yelling, screaming kind of leaders. And some teams need that. This group didn't need that at all. What they needed was those 2. And those 2, they're just unrelentless in terms of this is the way we do things. This is how we do it. We'd be in practice, and if things weren't going great, they would take a timeout, have a dialogue. And most of it came from both the supportive, but this just relentless, no, we just are going to keep going and we're going to push, and it doesn't matter. This is the way it gets done. And that came from their personalities, and their personalities are just really infectious. Kayla Dulgar, she's a bulldog, and that's the best way I can describe her. I mean, I think Coach Wheatley would love to have her as a linebacker on his team because she's that fierce. The things she played through just garnered so much respect from her teammates, and I think they had admiration, respect from their teammates, and they were, like I said, not in your face. That just this is the way we do things. They led by example, and they also were determined, and that was the way it went. When we made comebacks when we were struggling a little bit, they were usually at the forefront of it. Up at Northern Michigan, we were in big trouble. Kayla Dulgar in the fourth set goes back and serves 5 straight points to start the match, the fourth set, and it's like, okay, we're in control. And just those kinds of things were infectious and just kind of set the bar for the team.
So obviously those two led the way, and they're the ones that got a lot of headlines. But it wasn't those two and, all right, let's fill out the rest of the court. You had some pretty good players out there with them as well. Obviously this is always tough because you never want to leave anyone out. But talk about some of the, I guess, support players, role players that maybe weren't the headliners, but they played a big part in your success this year.
Yeah, there's a couple ways that I can talk to you about that one. The first one is there's players who were not on the floor for us this year that would have started for other teams in the league. So we had a nice roster this past year. That some of those things are tough when you're good, but buying into who we are and what we do, understanding that everybody has a role. We talk about we had 18 players on the roster this year. We talk about 1 through 18. Everybody has a role, and your role is important, and we value you. I think that led to great practices. It led to that great depth. And we did have some challenges with some physical things late in the year especially. And we had some players step up. I do think the one support player that probably impacted us the most and helped get us there was Leah Baldwin. Leah was a transfer. She had some really big ups and downs the first couple years while she was here. But really kind of hit her stride here in her final season and really stepped up and impacted. And her being good allowed our couple of freshmen to grow. It allowed for us to be a little bit different dynamic. In volleyball, a lot of teams are led by their outside hitters. They get the most swings. It's the most important. And our team was not designed that way this year because our outsides that started for us, one was an incoming freshman who didn't start 6 rotations until about halfway through the year. The other was a transfer who it took her some time to just kind of find her way and what she needed to be. And so Leah stepping up and really having some great matches really was a big factor. Kylie Weck off the bench, she's one of those players who didn't play a lot in matches, but she was a major factor for our team. She stepped up here when we had to start her in the quarterfinal against Michigan Tech and was amazing. And she'd been doing that all year long. People didn't get to see it because that Katie Smith, Aubrey Garcia, those two players. Katie was like our first player off the bench, and she brought a huge amount of energy. Very tough role for her because she'd been a starter last year, and this year she wasn't a starter, but she accepted and embraced her role, stepped on the court, was amazing. Aubrey Garcia understood that her role was not going to be an on-the-court role, and she embraced that, and she made us a great team. And then Abby was great in her role, too. We had some players who just really stepped in and did great things in their role. She stepped in. She was a great serving specialist, defensive player for us, and just really stepped in and filled those roles at elite levels. And it allowed us to not have so much pressure that Kayla Giroux had to have 30 kills.
Right.
And
She didn't have to be the entire show.
Yeah, no, there were several matches where she didn't lead us in categories. She led us always, but she didn't have to lead us in categories, statistical categories, because other people did.
So I want to go back to something you said at the beginning about how, not everyone got to play all the time. They could start for other teams. Sometimes they can get a team, and I'm sure you've coached a long time. You've been around teams where maybe that ends up getting a little toxic, where it's, well, I should be playing. I'm good enough to be out here. Just what does that say about the character of this team, and how much did it help that they, like you talked about, embracing role? I think you said that 2 or 3 different times, because that can go a couple of different ways, and obviously it went the right way for you this year.
Yeah, and a couple of years ago went the wrong way, and a lot of that has to do, unfortunately, a lot of it has to do with results, right? It's a lot easier to buy in when your team is being successful, and it's hard to to kind of say, to kind of go in that. But really, the reality is just was the character of the individuals that we have on our team. They're here for team first, and they're here to be a part of what we're doing here. And I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but when you watched us play and you watched some other teams play, there was a different vibe. There was we talk about family. You could see that. You could see that they both enjoyed playing. They enjoyed what each other was doing. Our bench was engaged in what was happening on the court. And that was legit. It wasn't like, hey, we told them, okay, you got to cheer. No, it's like this was like all in. It was like when we did something cool, they were fired up about it. And I can't tell you how many times when I'm standing on the sideline, I ran into people because they were bouncing off the bench and getting excited about things. And that was just an infectious mentality. And again, like I said, winning helps that process. But I really think most of that was the buy-in was just because of who they are as people. They were here. And this is a cliche statement. People talk about playing for each other. They really did do that. And again, I think the whole process is cyclical. We were successful. Kids were, seeing some successes. We kept everybody engaged. And because of all of that, it was really easy for them to buy in and play for each other. And, the results showed.
So you talk about it being cyclical. You're losing some pretty talented players off this year's team. How do you capitalize off the success of being GLIAC champs, both regular season and tournament, playing in the national tournament, and saying, all right, we got to get back there next year, and we still have unfinished business?
Yeah, every team is different. We number our teams. Next fall will be Team 13 since I've been here. So Team 13 will be different than Team 12. The NCAA legislation that's hopefully going to pass in January could impact that a little bit in terms of those changes in the team. But even if we have some players back, we're going to still be different. So every year you got to treat it a little different. Everybody's objectives are the same but different. And so I hope that we'll be able to just look at it as a different team with the same objectives and goals. Our goals have always been, since I got here day one, that we expect to be playing in the NCAA tournament. We expect to be competing for the GLIAC Championship. So that's what we've always wanted to do, and that's what we expect.
So you guys had obviously a great season, talked about it, but you get to the national tournament and you lose the heartbreaker in round 1. Can you both, on one hand, look back and say Team 12 was special? GLIAC championship for the first time in decades, GLIAC tournament champs, but also it felt like there was a little bit of meat left on that bone.
I think that we can play that card. The motivated. We were there. We still have it. We didn't quite get where we expected to. But on the same token, it's like after that match when we went into the locker room. The first thing I told them was I just repeated the scores. I just repeated the scores, and they were all 2-point sets. We lost 15-13 the fifth. Kayla Giroux hit a ball out by this much to lose 15-13 the fifth against a very, very good team from Findlay. So it's like, how can you can't really be disappointed by that. You can certainly be motivated to let's get back here and let's do it again. It's a lot of work, but I think that's sport, and that's team sport, and that's, you always have those things. And if you can utilize those things in the right way, it's hopefully you can just continue those things each season.
So as we start to get to the end part, I wanted to just talk about coach for a little bit. Talk about you,
Sure.
because you've been around a long time. You've been coaching volleyball for almost 40 years now,
It's
right?
been 40 years. December 1986 is when I started coaching college volleyball.
So, all right, just real quick, walk us through your journey and how you ended up at Wayne State, because you've had a few stops along the way.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Michigan. I went out west. I graduated from plating, graduated, and then eventually coached for 7 seasons at Cal State Northridge. That December, back in 1986, was my first recruiting event, was with the women's volleyball program at Cal State Northridge. I will never forget it, because I walked into Pauley Pavilion. It was a holiday tournament, and I was blown away that there were 12 volleyball courts set up in Pauley for this big tournament. And today, when we go to the same type of events, there's 260 courts. But at that time, that was a big deal, and some of the players that were there were really enjoyable. So that's how I started, and I just was like, just got into it, and I stayed there until the '94 earthquake hit. When the earthquake hit and my everything fell down around me, I'm like, I think it's time to make a move. Ended up having an opportunity to be at Eastern Michigan for a couple years. Kind of got back into the Midwest. I still had some men's volleyball vibes, so I took a job at Quincy University. It's a Division II school. At the time, they had a men's club program. They elevated it to collegiate varsity programs. While I was there, I got the administration to scholarship it. When I left, we were ranked in the top 15 in the country. I had 2 players play for the U.S. national team, and we had turned that program around. And Northwood for a little while in the GLIAC. Family was close by here. My parents and some cousins and stuff lived in the area. And when state opportunity opened up, I inquired. And Rob Fournier, who was our athletic director at the time, I can remember this distinctly. I sent an email on a Saturday morning. I think when I gotten up, I was having a cup of coffee, and I saw the Wayne State opening. I sent some information, sent an email, and Rob called me like 2 hours later. And got on the phone and was talking to me a little bit about Wayne State. Interview shortly thereafter, and the rest is kind of history.
So what drew you to Wayne State? Because that's not a move you see a lot, because at the time Northwood was in the GLIAC, and you had success at Northwood.
Yeah.
So you go from a program that you've built up and you've had success at Northwood. You had some really good players. Now you're coming to Wayne State, a program that did not have the success that Northwood had. What made you take that leap? I know family's a part of it, but also you have to enjoy where you're working and think you can get to the point you're at now.
So the interview process when I came here for Wayne State, I had been coming here for a decade, and the only place I'd been was Math I. So I came here. I'd come to Math I every year. I'd come to Math I. It'd look a little bit different, but it'd still come in, and we usually won. Sometimes it was tough, but we usually still won. I'll remember one year where Coach Winter's football team was pretty fierce, and we were still able to win. But that interview, when I came here and I took a tour of the campus, I was blown away. I'd never seen Wayne State. I knew it was a larger school. I knew that they had a lot of academic majors. It was very intriguing to me, having been at a focused curriculum school previously. The opportunity to recruit a little bit broader base was interesting. But then when I saw the campus, I'm like, there's a lot of potential here. We hear these stories about Wayne State a lot. When people come here and they see it, they're surprised by the magnitude of the school, Midtown, everything was here, and I'm like, I'm all in. It was like this is a place that I can be, and we can win something here too. So it took a little bit, but we did.
Because that's got to be a big change, because at Northwood, it is a good business school, but if you were talking to a young lady and they say, well, I want to go into medicine, how about accounting? That's got to be a tough sell.
Yeah, it was a real challenge to be there and to be able to do that. What I did at that particular school is we did a lot of international recruiting because a lot of international students, their interests are in the fields more related to business, so it was easier to get them to come. There were not a lot of preconceived notions with them, so it was really easy to do that. So if I had my top 10 international recruits, 8 out of 10 were probably interested in business. When I had my top 10 non-international recruits, Midwest kids, Michigan kids, it was probably the opposite. It was probably 2 out of 10 that were interested. So you kind of balanced it out that way. So my roster was about 50-50, half international, national, half American kids, and it was a lot of extra work doing that.
Have you ever had anyone here ask about a major and you go, actually, somehow we don't offer that? Because Wayne State offers a lot, but it's not all encompassing.
Nope.
Not once.
Not once. And we've come up with some people who've had some interesting stuff, actuary sciences and some really interesting majors. And I'm like, no, we have those. So yeah,
gotta be nice.
So the over 300 majors that we have in the 13 colleges has just made it an open kind of open smorgasbord, so to speak, of recruiting. So yeah, it's not been a challenge. I think initially when I got here, there are preconceived notions about Wayne State from people who are not familiar with it, but we address those head on.
Right.
So people are concerned about safety in the city and here, and so those are things that we immediately address on recruiting visits, and it usually hasn't been a deterrent for us.
No, it's once you get them on campus, you got them hooked, just like you were, and like when I was recruited here. I want to talk about Math High for a second because that's basically your home now. Because since the field house has been built, they said, "All right, this is all volleyball." How has that transition been to have, a volleyball specific space, and the film room you have is it's like a little movie theater in there. What has that been like, the transformation since you first got here to now?
Well, I pushed Rob's buttons from the day I got here about those things, and I worked with him for a long time. So I said it was something that we had been working on and different opportunities. When the field house came in, I mean, for 2 years I was politicking for redoing the floor in Math High to get it done. And, when Rob retired, Erica took over, she's like, well, what do you think about the Terraflex floor? And I'm like, let's do it. I'm all in. And, slowly a few other things. There's a few more things I'd like to see done in there, but, big progress. And it is impressive. I mean, when you, in reality, when you look at the Math High volleyball facility, as we kind of call it now, the Math High Arena, there's not a lot of people who have the things that we have, so it makes the recruiting process even that much more. We don't get everybody because Wayne State isn't everybody's niche.
Right.
But on the same token, when we're on a comparative level, we certainly are able to give an impressive showing in what we have, and being able to utilize the Math Eye for training and as a volleyball-specific facility is impressive to young women when they come here and are looking for those opportunities.
Right, because, it looks beautiful in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. And, yeah, like you said, especially at this level, there's not a lot of places that can say this is the volleyball area.
Yeah.
It's usually, all right, well, the basketball plays here, this and that. Nope, that's volleyball only in there. So, all right, as we finish up, Coach, what's the future of Wayne State volleyball looking like? Team 13 and beyond, because Team 12 was awesome, but I know everyone's real excited for Team 13.
Well, I hope so. I think the team is still going to be an outstanding team. We got a lot of talent returning. We've got a couple of really nice players coming in. We'll see if any of our seniors get another opportunity after the NCAA legislation at the convention. But I think everything is the same for me, and I've been working for a long time to get there, and I think we've had a lot of years where we've been really, really close, and some things just haven't quite gone our way. But I think every year is the same. I think that we're going to have a team that's going to be in the hunt for the GLIAC Championship, should be an opportunity for the NCAA tournament, and it should be an exciting team to watch for sure this fall.
Is having the trophies that are right up there to my right, that does it just take a little bit of weight off the shoulders that the girls come in going like, yeah, we're supposed to do this, not like this mountain we have to climb. It's, yeah, we did that, we just got to go do it again.
Yeah,
we know how to do it.
I think the word that comes to mind most is validation, right? So they've validated that the way we do things works. If they follow the program, we're going to give ourselves opportunities for success. And it's really easy for that concept of buying into the things we're telling them that they need to do. And it wasn't a hard sell. I mean, I've always been the same. I've just been, look, if we do these things, because I've done it, it's like I've done these things. If you do them, we're gonna be there. And like I said, so having those two up there, which is really difficult for me to let you guys have those in here.
How did Zach pry those away from you?
He pried them. So. But they deserve to be seen and be out there, because there was a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears behind those two trophies up there.
Well, here, Coach Zach, I don't want to mess up your set too bad, but here, you can show them to the camera. Show them.
Yeah,
show them
thank
right
you.
there.
I'll take this one.
And we'll grab this one.
Yeah.
And you can just There you go. 2 trophies for you in 1 year. That's pretty special, Coach.
Yeah, we'll take these, and there's a few other ones that went along with these two too that were really justified, and a few more to come.
Yeah, how about we next year just run it back, and then we can split some. You can have joint custody of multiple trophies.
There's more room on the shelves up there for them. So
I know there is. Well, Coach, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll be looking forward to volleyball in the fall.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
All right, appreciate it. All right, let's take a look at what's coming up now the rest of this week in Wayne State athletics. We start on Thursday. Breck, as you mentioned, big one going out to Allendale this weekend. Women at 5:30, men at 7:30. You can hear that on the Warrior Sports Network. Kevin, you'll be out there for that one. I guess let's talk about the women first. They play first that day, and it's for first place in the GLIAC. Grand Valley is doing Grand Valley thing. I mean, as much as I don't want to admit it, but it's right there. Grand Valley has been unbelievable, as like you said, defending national champions, and they're dump trunking teams by 20 plus. Just to use a comparison, the Findlay game that was a good win for Wayne State. Grand Valley went down there and won 92-57. Like they're beating teams by 40 plus. It seems like on a nightly basis.
I would probably, if they were in the Mid-American Conference, I would probably take them to win it, honestly. That's how good they are. I think they're better this year than they were last year, and last year they won the national title. I don't think they lost a game the entire NCAA tournament. I don't think they won a game in the NCAA tournament by less than 10 points last year, including against us in the second round. They're a buzzsaw, and they've been a buzzsaw for a while, and it's going to be tough, obviously, to go over there and win. But like I said in the previous segment, I think if Wayne State can go over there, I know coaches hate moral victories, and I don't want to talk about that, but you just compete and see where you're at. Your rivals in the league, Michigan Tech and Northern Michigan, played Grand Valley last week, and they both got dump trucked by Grand Valley. So if you lose to Grand Valley, you're not losing any ground to your competition. You always kind of frame it. You never want to frame it this way to a point, but you're playing basically everybody for second place with how good Grand Valley has been so far. Now, we'll see what happens. I haven't seen them play live. I saw them play the last quarter against Findlay because we were down there for the men's game that night when Wayne State played the Findlay men after the Grand Valley women played, and their third string was probably in the game during the fourth quarter because it was such a blowout, and their third string looked pretty good too, and that's kind of the way Grand Valley's operated during their run here these last 5 or 6 years. Their depth is just unbelievable. You can get a couple of your top players in foul trouble if you're GV, and you bring somebody off the bench, you're not missing a beat.
Oh, the 7th and 8th woman off the bench feels like they're a starter on basically any other team or most teams in the GLIAC. And here's the thing, you pull up their stats, and no one has eye-popping numbers because they don't have to play a lot.
No.
Like their leader in minutes per game is playing 23 minutes a game.
Yeah, and that's been the way it's been for a long time over there, and they rotate kids in and out. They don't miss a step. And again, I think it was 2 years ago, the younger Bisball is a standout now, but her older sister was a standout then, and she got 2 quick fouls like 2 minutes into the game. I'm thinking, okay, well, this might help us out a little bit, but they brought somebody off the bench who was almost just as good, and they didn't miss a beat. So it's going to be tough. It's always a great environment over there at GV. They got the big pep band over there. They always get a lot of people. To watch the games. It's a great gym to play basketball in. It's always a good environment, and I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, the men's game will be right after. It always has a 7:30 tip.
7:45.
Yeah, you'll be live at 7:30,
yeah,
right?
Live at 7:30. Tip around 7:45. Yeah.
So the GV men, while they're not their female counterparts, they're still pretty good. They're 9-3, 2-2 in league. What can you tell us about the Lakers men?
They beat Michigan Tech on Friday, who was ranked number 5th in the country. It's always tough to win up there in Houghton. And then they had to play Saturday. They went back-to-back. Some of the schools went back-to-back. We played Friday, Sunday. Some schools played Friday, Saturday. They went down to Marquette on Saturday, and Northern Michigan thumped them. Northern Michigan's the only undefeated team right now on the men's side of the GLIAC. We talked about the 5 really good teams on the women's side. I don't know if there is a standout team on the men's side. Northern Michigan looks pretty good, don't get me wrong.
And obviously Tech, they dropped
Tech's
the
had
game.
a great non-conference schedule. They dropped the game, but again, you're not going to go undefeated in league play. I think the league champ is probably going to have 3 or 4 losses by when it's all said and done, 17-3, 16-4. On the men's side, will probably get you a conference championships. So, but everybody else, with what I've seen so far, is pretty even. So, yeah, I give if the men come out and play defense the way they did this weekend, I give us a great chance to win the game.
All right, so yes, Thursday in Allendale. Saturday will be in Davenport. However, in between, do want to mention that swimming and diving is out at Calvin. Both the men's and women's will have that. And then they turn around on Saturday. They'll host Grand Valley here at the Mathi Natatorium. So both swimming and diving teams will be in action after what has been a lengthy break. I know they had a training session. They went on a little road trip for that. All right. So, again, next week we'll have another guest on. We'll talk about everything that happened, the men, the women. Again, swimming and diving out at Calvin on Friday, back here at the Mathi on Saturday, and then Thursday and Saturday you can listen to Kevin Brechmacher on the Warrior Sports Network. That'll do it for this week's edition of Warrior Weekly with Brady Beedon. We'll talk to you next week.